So here we are going to discuss about scope of variables. So generally we talked about what we call what is a functions, okay, and what are the advantages of the function, and how to declare the function, and how to invoke the function, okay, and we have seen traditional behavior of the function, okay. So before getting into this function as a data, I want to introduce something called function as function scope or sorry scope of a variable, or simply we can call scope, okay. Okay then, okay, right. So today we are going to discuss about scope. What is the scope and what are the scope of variables? All these things we are going to discuss. What is the local scope, what is the global scope, what is hoisting, all these things, okay. Let's get start with something called scope.html. Scope.js. Yes, scope. js slash scope.js. Now let us see what is the scope and why it is more important in our JavaScript function. Okay, simply saying, scope is nothing but, okay, is life or death of a variable. So that means, so here life or death of a variable. In this we have something called um, what I can say. um, 1 second. So the name itself indicating that life or death of a variable. That means we are talking about the availability of a variable inside our program. Okay, so how long the variable is going to be available when I declared inside a JavaScript program. Okay, so generally the scope is going to divide it as two types. One is local and global. Okay, two types of scopes are there. One is local, second one is global. Okay, generally speaking, it's for two types. Hmm. Oh, let me change this one to local and global. So when a variable is declared inside a function, then it is referred as a local variable. That means the availability of that variable will only exist inside that particular function only. Okay. For example, let me take a traditional function. Okay. I just declared a variable where x equal to 9, something like this, and I'm going to print this value something like x is equal to plus 9. Sorry, x. That means you are trying to access the variable x by using this particular statement, and this x variable is already defined inside this function. Okay, so I can say the scope of the variable is only to this particular function only, some function. Why? Because this may not be accessible outside of this function. Now you can see I just came out. I'm going to declare that console.log statement outside of this function. So let's see. I'm going to print this one. Now press F12. Now you can get an error like X is not defined. That means uh, because of this statement, this is, I can say, uh, outside, inside. Okay, so let's refresh this one. First of all, I just want to comment out this particular statement, console.log, and refresh the page. You don't find any error now. Why? Because I just removed the statement and I'm not able to get error, and I need to call this function. Okay, I'll show the page. See, I got a statement inside x is equal to 9, but I'm not able to access the value of x or x variable outside of this function. So such kind of declaration, such kind of variable declaration finds a local scope. Okay, that means when a variable is declared inside a function, or if a variable is available, or if a variable is available out, sorry, only inside the function, then it is referred as local variable. Okay, similarly, if a variable got defined outside of the function, okay, then a variable is defined outside of a function, then it is, okay, then it is referred as global scope. That means you can access that variable throughout the program. That means you can access that variable throughout the application, I can say. Not only a single JavaScript program, I'm able to access throughout the application. Now let us see. I just declared a local variable. If you want to declare a global variable, you need to define outside of the function, right? I'm going to take where y is equal to 99. I just have taken this one, and this y variable can be accessed anywhere inside the program. So I can access inside the function, outside of the function as well. Okay, now you can see that we don't find any errors. You're able to access now. I just name it as inside, outside. Refresh the page. You got something like inside and outside. Got it? So that means you are able to access a global variable anywhere in the program. Not only this, if I have multiple JavaScript files got included in our program, okay, so this kind of variable can be accessed in all those files. So what I can say here, I'm going to take something like save it as scope1.js. I'm going to take a new file, scope1.js. Okay. Here in this, I'm going to take one more variable, scope a temporary variable. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. This is temporary variable I'm going to take, and I'm going to place some 99 here. Okay. This is scope1.js, and this is scope.js. I'm going to include that variable, that file, something like this. That means you are able to work with that means this your HTML page is going to make use of this scope.js JavaScript file as well as scope1.js file. Okay, and I define scope1.js inside of scope1.js. I defined a temporary variable, and I'm going for to print the value console.log of temp equal to temp. Okay, and here I can say something like, okay, something like temp outside. Oh, let's make use of the temp itself. Temp is equal to plus temp. So what I can say here, this is a scope.js, right? This is scope.js. Inside the scope, I'm talking about, and this is scope one. Scope one. Okay, and refresh the page. See, you are able to access scope one, the temp variable inside the scope one. And what about this? I haven't saved this one. Not refresh the page. Oh, I unfortunately I got some error inside this particular scope one dot the temp variable is undefined. The reason is the order we place. Okay, here the order we place the JavaScript files that matters here. So what I'm going to do, I just wanna change this one. Why? Because the definition of the variable of the scope is there inside this JavaScript file. Okay, so before this JavaScript file is going to run, before that, now it's going to the JavaScript engine is going to run this program. After that, it's going to run this program. Okay, now here we have the definition, not here. So obviously, here the temp variable is undefined. Now after this, I just place scope.js and refresh the page. Now you don't find any errors here, no longer errors. Okay, now you're able to see this, you're able to access the temporary variable inside the scope one, that where you have defined, and here you can find scope column temp equal 99. Still you are able to access the temporary variable inside scope.js. Okay, so this is what is called scope variables. Sorry, uh, variable scope in JavaScript. We have two types. One is a local variable and global variable. Okay, I hope you understand this one. And one important point I want to make it as a note. Okay, globals are very dangerous. Globals are. So I can make it as a note. Globals are dan- ROS, dangerous. Why? Because see, I can say something like, mm, if I declare two variables, see, I have scope.js here, scope.js here. Okay, something like, inside this variable, inside this file, I'm going to place a temp variable now. Let's take temp equal to 100, and inside this I have temp equal to 99. So I declare two global variables. Okay, are you getting two global variables which is of same name in both these files? So what I'm saying is here I have temp equal to 99 in scope1.js and temp equal to 100 in scope.js. Okay, so when I'm going to work on this application, which file is going to be, which particular temp is going to be used, or which temp variable is going to be accessed inside the scope.js? Obviously, this one. But what I'm going to do, I just want to make use of something like, mm, let me show the problem here. What I can say here, I have taken temp variable 100, and this is 99. So what I can say. Hmm. One second. What I did, temp equal to 99, and no, I want to show you something. Mm, let's see order. First scope one is defined, right? So here there is some JavaScript function called set timeout function. Okay, this function, okay, is a predefined function which is used to execute a particular set of code. Okay, don't worry about the syntax. I'll talk about this set timeout function later on. But see, try to understand in this case about the scope. So here I'm trying to access the temp variable. Okay, so set timeout. I'm going to execute this one now. What is the output that you expected here? So I'm going to make something like set timeout and refresh the page. I'm sorry. Probably I will get. Now, what is the value that you expect here? What is the value I just placed inside the scope1.js? It's a 99, right? So I can expect a 99 here. This is my file. Assume this file was written by me. So I place 99 and I want to print the value of temp variable after 2000 milliseconds. But unfortunately, again, my team member also written one more file in my application. Okay, so here in this case, what I can say, the value of temp is equal to 100. Here the value of temp is 99. But first scope1.js is got executed. After that, scope.js got executed. So, you know, from this point to this point, everything is going to execute it. But this code is going to execute after 2000 milliseconds. Assume. During this time, the scope.js file is going to be execute all the code. Okay. So after execution of this entire content, okay, then only it will print this particular code. Okay. Why? Because 2000 milliseconds is that means 2 seconds. It is 2 seconds is very big delay when you consider in a programming languages. Why? Because your microprocessor works in milliseconds or microseconds, right? So 2 seconds means it's very high. So here this code takes hardly it will take around zero point 0.5 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds, something like that. So it will execute all the code. After 2 seconds, it is going to execute. Now, what is happening? This code was written by me, and this code was written by my team member, Assume. But unfortunately, what happens is, uh, I thought that unfortunately we don't know what kind of variables that we have used in our program. Um, in my programs. Okay, so see, unfortunately, we find some collision here, but we didn't notice it here. Because of that, I assumed that the temp value, I can expect the value of the temp value at this time, I can expect it will be 99. But you can see the output is 100. That's our timeout. Why? Because see, the order is first scope1.js is executed. After that, scope.js got executed. Okay, the order is happen like this. Got it? So because of that, so after before 2000 milliseconds, this code was executed and the value of temp is updated to 100. So that means some sort of ambiguity is going to find in this output. Okay, this is not what actually we need, right? This is not actually what we need. Okay, so set timeout is equal to we got something temp 100. Okay, so this is the most dangerous problem in our with respect to globals. Okay, so don't never use same names when you're going to work with it. You need to communicate with your team members. Okay, otherwise, okay, you need to communicate with your team members. Otherwise, you need to go for if the solution for this is if okay, I sorry if immediate function invocation. We'll talk about this one later on. Okay. Um, hope you understand this problem. Okay. This is a problem that you can find with globals. Globals are very dangerous in JavaScript. Okay. 1 second, please. Um, along with the global and the local scope, we have something called right. So here we have other kinds of scopes are there. See, this category base local scope and global scope was defined based on okay this categorization was based on uh, variable is defined, okay, where the variable is defined, and we have other kind of classification is there for the scope that is based on the time at which the variable is defined. Okay, one is static scope, second one is dynamic scope. Okay, we have static scope and dynamic scope. If a variable is defined at the time of if a variable is defined at the time of compilation, Okay, of course, in JavaScript, we don't have pure compilation. It's a pure interpreter language only. But we do find a little phase of compilation in JavaScript. Okay, so that is why I used the word here. So if a variable is defined at the time of compilation, then it is referred as a static scope. Okay, if a variable is defined at the time of interpretation, then it is referred as a dynamic scope. Got it? So we have four kinds of scopes are there. One is local, global, static scope, and dynamic scope. Now, this is very important thing when I'm talking about the static and dynamic. Okay, so you assume that you can assume something like I can form a table. Okay, we have two pages inside this JavaScript program. One is compilation, a little bit compilation, I can say. Okay, so what I can take, I'm going to make it as a local. Okay, second one is global. Okay, got it. What I can say here, uh, 1 second, please. I can see what I'm saying. I was in other mindset. Sorry. 1 second. Where I'm static scope and dynamic scope. So we have generally we don't know local and global. Now, if I see, I just declared a variable. Now, whenever I declared a variable with a keyword var in front of the any variable, okay, since the scope of this variable is going to evaluate at the time of compilation. So if you declare a variable at the time of okay, so I'm sorry. Mm, where yeah. So when I declared a variable with a var keyword, that variable scope is going to be evaluated. It might be a local or global, whatever the thing. Okay, that scope is going to be evaluated at the time of compilation only. Okay, So, for example, just look at this one. What the compilation phase in JavaScript will do is, it will go through the all the code what you have written. Okay, it will go through all the code. Okay, it will filter out whenever it filter out the variables whenever it finds a var keyword. Okay, it filter out whenever it finds a var keyword. Okay, those variables will be filtered out, and those variable scope is going to be defined. So at the time, if the variable is inside a function, then that particular variable is pushed into local section. If a variable is defined outside of the function, that variable is defined into global section. So definitely, during at the time of compilation, you should have a var keyword. Then only that particular variable is going to be defined. Okay, so I'll talk about the what is the dynamic scope later. First of all, let's discuss on this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one more file. Let's make it as clear. Static and dynamic scope .html. Static and dynamic .js. I can use. Okay, so dynamic scope, and you have something js slash. Okay, so static and dynamic.js. Okay, so we have a file is attached to this one. Let's close this one. Yes, I'm going to define this. So before that, let me create a simple example here. What I can do, var x equal to 9. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to print this value console.log of x is equal to plus x function. Okay, I can use a test function console.log. You are able to access the same variable. Okay, console.log x is equal to plus x. Okay, I'm going to print this value, and after this, no, that's fine. So what I'm going to do here, var y is equal to 99, and I'm going to take something like y is equal to plus y. So I just made a call to this function. Now you tell me what is the output of this function and this particular statements. So this will be, now I can ask you, now you tell me what is the output at here, here, here. Okay, this is 9 and this is 9. And what about this? This is also 99. So what I'm saying is, now before this code is going to be run, okay, before the code is going to be run, the definition of this variable and this variable will extract at the time of compilation. Remember that point. Definition of the var keyword is going to be extracted at the time of compilation. Okay, so here now you can see, let me find a local and a global table. This is local and this is global table, and here you have something called x, that is global. See, once a compiler will find this var keyword, so it's going to find out where the position of this particular variable. It is outside of the function, then x is pushed into global variable. At the time of compilation, the x value has what the value of x? It will be undefined only, not the 9. Why? Because 9 is an assignment. Sorry, 9 will be assigned to the x only at the time of execution. Okay. So when you execute this variable, this particular line, then only the 9 will be assigned to x. So before that, it has only undefined. Now, the first var keyword that I got, the second var keyword is this one. Okay. So the compiler is going to extend all the var keywords. So at this point, you will find y, and this is the inside the function. Then it will be pushed into the local section, and you have something called undefined here also. The y variable is also has undefined. So once the interpreter phase come, it will execute this statement, and the value of undefined is overwritten by 9. So x has a 9. Okay, and it's trying to print x value. So when x is going to be printing, now the interpreter software is going to interact this particular table, and is going to ask whether the table has the value of x or not. X is there or not. So when the interpreter is going to query this kind of table, then it will say, see, now interpreter is asking this table, do you know the value of x? Do you know the x? Yes, I do. This table will reply. Let us assume this is a scope table. Assume scope table. Now the interpreter software is going to make a query to this scope table when this particular statement is occurred. Not only this, when we are trying to access the x variable. So interpreter is going to ask, do you know the x? Yes, immediately the scope area is going to send a response, something like, yes, I do. It is a global section. It is in the global section. No, the value of the definition of this, the variable scope is defined as a global. Okay, and the value is 9. Similarly, when you execute this function call, it will come here. The interpreter will come to this particular x variable. Again, it will ask the scope table. Okay. So do you know the x variable? Yes, it is in the global section. The value is 9. So that is why I got 9 value here. So after executing this particular thing, then for this I value, 99 is got updated to this y value. Okay. So whenever this JavaScript engine or interpreter software is going to execute this particular code, again it will query the scope table. Do you know the value of y? Yes, it is in the local section. Then 99 will be printed. Got it? That's fine. That's very good. Very interesting. And what I'm going to do, console dot log of. Now you tell me what is the output here at this point. See, actually, you can find you can expect a 99 generally. Why? Because the variable is value is 99. But remember, the 99 value is only placed inside y value whenever you executed this statement, right? The JavaScript engine is executed this statement. Before that, the value will be undefined only. Okay. So when a JavaScript engine query the scope table according to about this particular y variable, it will return undefined. Why? Because the y value is not yet updated. Only the y value will be updated at the time of this instruction only, after execution of this instruction, right? So you will find an undefined. This is one of the interview question you can find in JavaScript. They will ask like this. Okay. So remember, always there will be a scope. Assume there is a scope table. The scope of the variables will be defined at the time of compilation. The scope of the variable will be extracted only if it has a var keyword. Okay, the static scope. This is what is called static scope. If the variable scope is extracted at the time of compilation, that is called static scope. Now it has a static scope. It's a global. This is a local scope. Okay, but the value is not updated here. The value is not updated. Why? Because after execution of this statement only your value will be updated. Before that, actually, generally speaking, see, if you before this y value, see, if it is a dynamic scope, if I declared a variable y here, before that you're no longer access the y variable, right? But still you are accessing y variable, but the value is undefined. The reason is it's static scope. The scope is already defined before the execution. Okay. Now what about the dynamic scope? Now I'm going to take the same example. Here I just want to take this one, y value. I'm not defining the var keyword here. If you left the var keyword inside your JavaScript program for a particular variable, now see, you don't find any definition for this variable. I haven't used a var keyword. Okay. So generally speaking, what happens if I remove this one? You will get an error. Oops. This one. See, y is not defined. See, without a definition of the y value, you're not no longer access that y value, right? That is why you're getting y is not defined. This is a reference error. I don't have any. That means JavaScript doesn't find any reference to this particular variable or object or array. Got it? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to place this kind of instruction here. Y is equal to 99. Of course, I don't have any var keyword now. Okay, so if you don't have var keyword, the scope is not defined at the time of compilation. That means it's not a static scope. So whenever I'm going to execute this one, now you tell me what is the output at this point. Okay, this will be error. The reason is, see, the scope is not defined for this variable. So that means until unless you execute this particular variable, okay, this variable has an error. That is what is called reference error. Okay, so that is a reference error. Why? Because the scope is not defined. That means about this kind of variable is the JavaScript doesn't know about this kind of variable, right? Only it will extract at the time of compilation. The JavaScript compiler will only extract the var keywords only. Here I don't have the var keyword, so I don't know about the y variable. But at the time of execution, now let's see. At this point, you will find an error. See, y is not defined. Let me remove this statement for the time being. You don't have y variable. You're not accessing the y variable before y is assigned. Now I just removed that statement. Now what about this particular variable? The value is 99. Why? Because y got some definition here. Okay. So now the JavaScript interpreter is trying to define this variable once it has some value inside of it. See, at this time it's trying to execute or it's trying to place this kind of value inside this variable, but JavaScript doesn't find the variable y, so immediately it will create the variable. Okay, and the variable will be placed inside the global section. Okay, this variable is defined. The dynamic scope is always a global section or global variables. Okay, so this is called dynamic scope. If you are going to evaluate a variable scope at the time of execution, then it is called dynamic scope. Or if you are going to evaluate a variable scope at the time of compilation with the help of var keyword, it is called static scope. So here you will find 99.